Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Today in America mini series. So we had our first one last week. This is our second one, and I am super excited to introduce our next guest, Bobby Sausalito. I've been watching his videos now on Instagram, and they are freaking hilarious. If we could just take a moment and take a look at this clip, everyone's gonna love it.
Unusual amount of joy watching AOC crumble under her lack of understanding of how anything works. You mean to tell me that the racist Republicans are not going to honor an old woman's dying wish? Her dying wish? Mitch McConnell, racism, free everything, dying wish? It was her wish. We're not going back to brunch. You're not going back to brunch. This is not brunch. This is your life. You're gonna gotta fight for your life. And then Mitch McConnell's like, and we're just gonna do whatever.
And that is the reason, Bobby, that I really wanted to have you on, because what you do is, you make it funny. And I think that's where I can kind of relate to you, is that I want to bring it more of a comedic relief, but at the same time, you do it in a way that's truthful, that speaks the truth. What's made you want to do videos like this, or to start in politics? Like, what was your driving factor?
Primarily, it was frustration, I think, and it was just that, like, it was just so funny in and of itself, like what was happening and how insane what they were trying to sell to us was. And I was like, this is absolutely nuts. And I was frustrated because when I try to talk to my friends that either don't care or are on the other side, it's like, yo, man, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about that. I don't want to be fighting or whatever. And it's like, I was just frustrated with how insane everything was, that I couldn't help but just like yell it into my phone as a way to kind of like vent the frustration. Because I just thought it was so funny and so like blatant that anybody that was actually paying attention to it for more than a little bit of time was like, oh my God, like, are people seeing this? Like, this is so nuts. And I honestly feel like the humor just created itself, because what they're saying is like so preposterous from day to day that I like couldn't help myself.
Yeah, I think that's so funny too, because a lot of people message me like, you're so funny. Like, I'm like, the things that they're talking about is so funny. It's not even me. It's Joe Biden saying these things, and I'm just posting it with my reaction to it, and it's just hilarious. But I was in the same way.
I want to just like real fast butt in and say that I love that you bring such a comedic relief to politics, basically, because right now with everything going on, everything is so serious, and it's so it kind of depresses you a little bit with all the things going on in this country right now. So I think it's so great to have people like you that bring more of a comedic relief and like a comedic style, and it's very lighthearted, and it can probably get people on both sides to kind of laugh a little bit.
Yeah. I think that was the thing that I kind of realized originally, because I've been making kind of political, like, yo, are you guys seeing this videos for a long time? And like, none of them really caught on. Like the ones where I was just like, oh my God, like this is so out of control. Like, even I just like I couldn't help myself from laughing. And it like just became funny just in and of itself. It's like, it's so ridiculous that I just like couldn't help it not be funny. So I'm glad that you guys appreciate it. And I also realized very quickly that humor was a delivery mechanism that made people that are even on the other side of it enjoy it. And interestingly enough, they're willing to absorb that content that they otherwise would have been like, either A, this is boring, or B, I don't agree with it. It actually gets them to listen and pay attention, even if they don't agree with me, which is helpful because the facts, for the most part, are being distributed to them nonetheless.
Exactly. It's still something that's getting out, whether or not they have believed in it or not.
Right.
So I really want to get your take on this aftermath of the debate.
Yeah.
So the thing that's going around Twitter and just on social media and the liberal media as a whole is that at the debate, President Trump still hasn't denounced, white supremacy and racism. And I just can't. How many times does Trump have to go in front of a camera and say, I denounced these people, I denounced the KKK, I did, what is it about the media or Americans right now? What is it that makes them want to paint President Trump as a racist?
I think that it's one of those things where it's just like, I wish that I knew the exact name for this strategy, but basically a way to get people to not pay attention to what you're doing is accuse them of doing what you in fact are doing.
Yes.
So that when they're like, wait, no, that's you. It's like, no, it's you. We just said that. You can't throw that argument back at me. So it's like, it's a deception tactic. And you could look on paper, if you want to say that anybody is racist, the behaviors of Joe Biden over the course of his career have far more racial undertones than anything that Donald Trump has done. So I think that it's just like a common left tactic where it's just like, blame them for what I do, so that when you point it back at them, it's like, no, I already heard that argument. That's so ridiculous. You can't just throw it right back at me. I believe that there's probably a name for that strategy of deception. In addition to that, it's an easy way to kind of like polarize anybody, because the vast majority of people that I meet, and the vast majority of people, if you're walking down the street, are not outwardly racist. And I don't really think that America is a racist, very bad, very evil place.
No.
And I think that if you say that, it's like an emotional trigger for a lot of people, where they're like, oh, I couldn't possibly agree with that. I definitely don't want to do that. And not only just internally, but I don't want other people to think that I'm racist either. So therefore, anything that even has the slightest flavor of racism is just like, I gotta get as far away from this as possible. And I think that it's just one of those things that you can kind of sling with not a lot of evidence, and you can make people just be like, let me just distance myself from that. So it's an easy point and blame, and it also is not a policy. It's a personality attack as opposed to a policy attack. And if the election is based on personality, Trump loses. And if the election is based on policy, he wins. So it's just like anything that's on him, his personality, how he's a racist or he's a blank, will deceive you from the actual policy and the data that supports all the things that he actually does do really well.
And that's a great point that you make, is that it's not about policy right now with Democrats. I think one of the things they really do, and I mean, they do it well, is that they play to our human nature of emotions, right? Yeah. So we're very emotional creatures. So we act out on emotion before we act out on listening or following statistics or anything like that. And for me, what really made me angry watching that debate is Chris Wallace.
Yeah.
So it's just, I knew it was over. So when Chris Wallace sat there and Joe Biden, I don't even remember what he said, but he said something and Joe Biden or Wallace started laughing with Joe Biden. I'm like, oh, okay. So are they just buddy? Like, is that what's going on? But I just would want to ask Chris Wallace, why didn't he ask Joe Biden one time, just once, what were your policies? You've had 47 years in government. Name the policies that you've had that helped or benefited the minority community, the Black community. What are the policies? Why should Black Americans give you your vote? Instead of trying to make Donald Trump be painted as a racist, why didn't he ask him those questions? What have you done and what are you doing to get that Black vote?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, the fact that a supposed moderator is going to intervene and interrupt the questions and do the work of Joe Biden is just preposterous in and of itself, and it's unfortunate, and it kind of I think alludes to the fact that if you kind of like just believe this guy is a clown and you're like, oh, like, yeah, let's laugh at how ridiculous this is. It's such an easy, you can see that that's already in his mind before he even poses any question. It's not about getting down to the facts. It's not about letting them debate. It's about allowing their own opinions to drip into the conversation. And he really wanted to be the one that was debating and fighting with him about those topics. If he was a completely objective journalist, which does not exist now anymore, I've been looking around.
It does not.
Then you would never do that, and you would just ask the question. I said in my video that Chris Wallace's job could have been better done by a teleprompter. Like, literally, if there was just a sign that said, "Please talk about these topics for 5 minutes," and a bell, it would have been a better job. And like, I think that's the thing, is that like, if you already are on Joe's side and you already believe Trump is a clown, you're like, yeah, get him, Chris. Like, I'll go after him. And it's just like, that is not objective journalism. That's not a debate. That is, it's outrageous is what it is. And it's certainly created the dumpster fire that they kept labeling it as, a lot more so than it would have, I think, maybe just on its own.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think it's people, and especially going into this debate, the left, they wanted to make it seem like, oh, Chris Wallace, yeah, he's like our conservative moderator, Fox News. Like now the right can't complain. But what people don't even realize is Chris Wallace was never a supporter of Trump.
Yeah.
And, he's a never Trumper. I personally think he's a closeted liberal. And as we've seen in the past couple months, Fox News is kind of more and more they're catering to the left. I think there's only quite a few that are really saving Fox News, and Tucker Carlson is one of them. I personally think Tucker would be a great moderator, because yes, though he does support Trump, he will answer, or he will ask the hard-hitted questions for both candidates. And, this will bring us right into the next question, is that, yes, Trump interrupted, quite a lot in this debate, but, we have to take into effect that he was basically debating two people.
Yeah.
And they were constantly ganging up on him. I mean, what's your take on the fact that they were basically both of them tag teaming Trump?
If you're I've been self-employed for a number of years, and if you're in a business conversation or business transaction, and it's two people on the other side of the table versus one, it's a lot harder to compete with that, because you not only have to convince that person, but you have to convince the other, and then you have to convince them together. So strategically, it's very difficult to go against two people, no matter what it is, especially in a debate format like that, because it's like you don't know who's going to interrupt. You can't read the facial expressions of both people at the same time, so you constantly have to be bouncing. And if you look at how Trump was reacting, he was talking to Chris Wallace. He was looking at Chris Wallace. He was not looking at Joe. And Joe was sitting there like kind of with a grin on his face staring while the debate went on between him and Chris. And that, I think, is a problem. And like, it just makes you wonder, like, what is the purpose of a moderator anyways? And if they want to say the interrupting, okay, there should be or it could be any person. It could be a teenager. Ask the question, turn the mic on for 2 minutes, turn the mic on the other one for 2 minutes. That's it. That's a moderator. That I don't understand what Chris Wallace's purpose was in there. I don't understand how that gave us any value. And I think that it really, in its own way, created and catalyzed the elevating tension throughout the whole thing. Because if that was you and you were up there fighting after you know that all these people have been slanging you for all this time, and now you have the stage. If I was Trump, I'd probably be doing a lot of the same. Like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, what? I'm saying 1,000 things that are of real substance and value. You're cutting me off every time. It makes sense why a person would kind of like boil over like that. Not that I necessarily support all of it. And there's a lot of things that he said that were not good, but it raises the temperature, and it's really easy to pop someone off that's being slapped and smeared up and down, left and right every single day. I can understand why he went after it like that. He's like, I got to be apex predator. I got to go in. I got to deliver as much as I possibly can. And for the people that were really listening intently, we heard it. It's unfortunate that anybody on the outside was like, this guy's a bully.
Yeah.
And that's all they took from it, sadly.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think I just say one thing about the debate is, like, when I saw Chris Wallace, I thought it was going to be, I was very optimistic. I was like, he'll do okay. Like, he's hard on Trump, but, he might be hard on Biden too. But he was not hard on Biden at all. There were so many things from, what his opinions on of Black Lives Matters. And he got away with this Antifa notion that, they're an idea. They're not a real organization, when Antifa acknowledges Antifa.
Oh, I had a nice little rant about that in our first episode.
You definitely did. So what is it? So what would you look for? Let's say you were coaching President Trump. What is it that you would look for if he would listen to you? What is it that you would look for? What would you tell him about maybe how to conduct or what to talk about during the next debate?
I think I love Ben Shapiro. I listen to Ben Shapiro a lot. I agree with a lot of the things that he says. And he had a really interesting take on this that I think is dead accurate about how Trump should debate him. And he was just like, let Joe lie. Like, get him on policy and then let him lie and let him trip up over his own lies. And then point back to these things where he just like blatantly lies. The interrupting definitely didn't help. And I think that the reality of it is, like I said before, if it's a debate on his personality, he's going to lose. If it's a debate on the policy and the things that are actually happening versus the things that have happened with Joe and what he wants to put in, like Trump wins that all the time. For anybody that's paying attention with any degree of knowledge would see that, and they would see the things that are happening, the expedient nature in which they are happening, is like something that we haven't seen in a really long time. Joe has had plenty of time to do all this, and we have this supposed horrible government that he's going to somehow now fix. It's like, dog, we see you, like we've seen you. What do you mean? Like how does this change now? Like what are you talking about? And it's just really unfortunate that people kind of come in the ninth inning and they're like, oh, he's a racist. Like I read it in CNN. I watched the debate. He didn't directly say whatever. And they're just like, yeah, okay, dismiss him. And when Chris Wallace dismisses him, it's kind of like I said before, two people are ganging up, right? So you see these two people kind of like laughing in jest at this guy. And it's like, well, that's the obvious conclusion. That's how everybody thinks. Everyone thinks he's a clown. Everybody thinks what he says is ridiculous. Everybody thinks he's a bully. I agree. Just it's like human nature. I bet there's a lot of science to that. And just seeing two people kind of jest at his expense and being like, all right, well, because nobody wants to be on the other side of the team. Everybody wants to be part of the gang. No one wants to go and be the opposite. It'd be so easy to be like, screw Donald Trump. It's the easiest position to have in the history of time. Everybody hates him, right? It's so easy. But to be on the other side, to wear a red hat, it's like, that's dangerous. That's going against it. And you're certainly not going to sign up to have people simply hate you because you're not part of the team. And I think that's just an easy position to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And, it bringing back to, because I love Ben Shapiro too, and he's always right on the money. And he's not even like a huge Trump supporter either. Right. So it's like, I feel like people tend to forget that. Like he tells the truth. It's not, because he's a Trump supporter or this or that. He tells it like it is. And, I think that's definitely one criticism that I have for Trump for the next debate, don't interrupt as much. I know that like he has this feeling like he needs to defend himself. And I understand that because we are watching it, a play-by-play of him constantly being torn down by the leftist lies. But Joe Biden, he can shoot himself in the foot. He does the most damage when he speaks. Yeah. So it's like, let him speak. And then when it's your turn, you just nail him with all of your policies. You nail him with everything that you've done for the Black community, everything that you've done for this economy, everything that you've done for the country. And I think that's what he needs to focus on for the next debate in order for him to really win.
Yeah, I'm with you because I was watching and there were so many times where I'm like, oh yeah, Joe's about to he's about to really get himself in a pickle here. And then like Trump would, every time Trump kind of every time that Trump talks, pickle, get yourself in a pickle. But every time Trump, interrupts him, it gives less meaning to it. Like it takes away from actually what Joe is saying. And it's like, wow, your attention goes to President Trump, who's, I don't blame him. I would be the same way. I was sitting on my couch and I'm just like, my ears are getting hot and I'm just like, I'm looking at Chris Wallace like, I want to go over there. I want to punch you in the face right now. Like I was just,
Ricky, eat a Snickers.
I was so mad though, but I do agree going forward. If Trump sticks to what he's done, because he's done good things, right? Like he had the best economy, pre-COVID. He had the lowest unemployment rate. He was, he was giving money to HBCU funding at a record pace. He was doing a lot of things that benefit, I'm not even just talking about minorities. Let's just talk about country as a whole. Our country was doing good. We were doing better. And then just apply that to what Biden has done. If you try to make it about policy, Trump will win. I agree with you, Bobby.
Yeah, no, that's 100% the case. And like the other thing that was so crazy, which is why Chris Wallace was just making us all hot, is that anytime that there was actually a legit question that Joe would have to really answer, he would save him. He cut the substantive questions before he could answer them, and he saved him, which is why there were those hilarious memes of him like carrying him across the battlefield or whatever.
He coddled him.
Oh my God, those are so funny. But like he legit saved him so many times. And there's this clip of Joe like stumbling over his words on, I think it was on MSNBC, that Ben Shapiro highlighted amongst many others, where he was forgetting what he was talking about, and the MSNBC anchor was like, "Oh, you mean this? Like you mean this?"
Oh yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, of course." So it's like there's a concerted effort to like carry him along, and I think it's more than evident that he was protected by the topic switch at all of the very crucial moments. And then on top of all of that, to ask about Charlottesville, to ask that question.
God, the
to ask that
Charlottesville
question,
one drives me nuts.
it's like, dog, what? Like, so it's just like the questions, even just as written, the questions were already targeted at him. And then you put Chris Wallace in there. Then you put him laughing at Trump's expense. Then you put him interrupting. Then you get him saving him every time there's a substantive question. It's like, add all that, like Trump's head popped off. I mean, I get it. And even when some of the questions were asked, he'd be like, oh yeah, here we go. Like, here we go, Charlottesville question. Like, sweet, dude. So
Exactly. And the Charlottesville one, I was waiting for Chris Wallace to interrupt Joe Biden, because Joe Biden goes on every news station that he goes on, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, and he says the same thing of President Trump said they were both, there were fine people on both sides.
right.
And everyone knows that's a lie. Chris Wallace knows that's a lie. And for him not to point that lie out when he points at anything Trump says that Wallace himself didn't agree with, he quipped in and he talked about it.
Yep.
He was debating Trump while Trump was talking. So for him not to do that to Joe Biden, it drove me freaking nuts.
To even ask the question to begin with, to even ask,
because it's false. Yeah, it was a false. Yep.
Exactly. And then, like Ben Shapiro was talking about that. He's like, they're teeing them up with like known mistruths. And it's just like, how do you fight that? It was sad. And it's like, whoever is writing those questions should be ashamed of themselves. And then like Chris Wallace on top of that. And he's being interviewed talking about like, oh, why did the temperature get raised? It's like, I swear they want to raise their own stock. They want to raise their own, how prolific they are out in the ethos. They want people to be paying attention to them. They want to be part of the conversation, when in reality, we don't care. At least I don't think that most people care what Chris Wallace thinks. We care about these two cats and that's it. And why he would interject at all, even if one of them was blatantly lying straight away, then keep the same policy for both. Just let them debate it. Isn't that the point? Isn't that what a debate is? I don't know.
That's exactly what a debate is. It's an argument between two people. Now,
Right.
you don't have to even be factual for it to be an argument or a debate. You want it to be, and American people will have to make that determination for themselves. But yeah, the interruption was terrible. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think we've got like a timer on here, but I think I think basically this next debate is going to be exciting. I'm just hoping that everyone, moderator and both candidates, can kind of get their ish together. And, it'll really show Biden's true colors, because the left likes to paint him as this sweet old man. And, like he's just so kind and fragile and sweet and everything. And Trump as this big bully. So hopefully the next debate, they'll kind of strip away the colors a little bit. But Bobby, please tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Take Naps. I'm on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook as Bobby Sausalito. I'm on Parler at Take Naps. And then I have BobbySausalito.com. All the links are there. And that's where you can find it. But Instagram is definitely my home base. That's where I do the most native screen
freaking
yelling.
hilarious.
Oh yeah,
Hilarious.
his videos are awesome. So everybody needs to go follow him, and we'll make sure that we get him on the big podcast because I think we have a good connection here. We could probably talk for hours. I feel like so. We'll definitely get you on the big podcast. And thank you so much for joining us on our little mini segment, episode 2. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, and thank you, guys,
Bobby.
and thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, Nick, you can stop recording.